Yeah, I mean, compare. I have a section on Acts on the historicity of Jesus, where I talk about the brother of Jesus. Well, there's actually just the brother of Jesus in general. How the sourcing of that. There is no brother of Jesus in the Book of Acts, for example. You have to sort of presume he's in there by adding stuff that's not in Acts. And so what he does is he takes all of these little pieces of information and invents this hypothesis that connects all that data. And then he treats that data as fact and builds another hypothesis on top of that. And you're like, well, hold on, we've just gone in a complete circle here. So I don't find that plausible at all. I have issues with other things that Tabor has done lately with the Jesus tomb and things like that. But and then finding the Jonah inscription, the Jonah being eaten by the whale, and it's really just a pot that's upside down. Anyway. So the Jesus dynasty thing, I think it's a stretch, and I wouldn't say it's ridiculous. I'd say that's possible, but the evidence doesn't really support that.
But is Jesus being
apocalyptic?
Thank you. Preacher, that whole concept was kind of
absolutely, it's plausible.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be that. I think you think in terms of he has to have been doing something like that, engaging in that activity in some fashion. If we assume he's historical, he had to be doing something like that for people to believe these things about him. Unless, you imagine this really strange sequence of events like we have for various other religions, like the Rastafarian religion, where he was preaching something completely different. He was just saying, be nice to each other, let's say, even though he didn't. But let's say he's preaching some other stuff where people really revered him, and they became convinced in their hearts that he was Messiah, even though he never claimed to be, never made any predictions of the future. And then he gets killed gets rammed through court for whatever reason he gets killed for. And then people have these dreams or visions, and Jesus came to me, and he says he's coming back. And and so all the apocalypticism comes from his followers after his death. That's just as plausible. You can actually build that out. And you look in the Book of Revelation. Book of Revelation, they're doing exactly that. In fact, they're having Jesus dictate letters from outer space. So these are letters written by Jesus, and you're just a scribe. He's talking to you from outer space, and you're going to send these letters to these churches. And it's this whole apocalyptic thing where you've got the living voice of Jesus in this document, but it's completely made up. So you can get apocalypticism without an apocalyptic Jesus. So it's not guaranteed, but it is a plausible hypothesis because we have a lot of these apocalyptic guys running around in Judea. A lot of them were trying to portray themselves. We have in Josephus where they're portraying themselves as the new Joshua. Joshua, by the way, is the same name as Jesus. They're all trying to do things that were Joshua things, like topple the walls, part the Jordan. They're doing all these things that will establish them as the new returned Joshua. And they're all portraying themselves as messianic, like it's going to lead to, we're going to kick the Romans out or whatever. We're going to do this messianic thing. Well, that means these guys are Jesus Christs, because what does that mean? Joshua, Messiah, right? So there are a bunch of these Jesus Christs going around doing these things, getting themselves killed, because they're all Romans go, and they get in and kill these guys. It could just be that Jesus was one of the least popular of one of these, just part of the fad, and he just wasn't famous and well known enough for Josephus to mention him, but he mentions all these others. So that's entirely plausible. And I have a talk where I actually build this out. I give the case for why this is plausible, and it's called "You're All Gonna Die." And then the subtitle of this talk is how the Jews kept failing to predict the end of the world and accidentally caused Christianity instead. I gave this talk on Rapture Day when camping said the world was going to end. So it was on Rapture Day itself. So you can go see the video, the Rapture Day talk in Wichita, where I was giving it. And in the midst of the talk, I'll be looking at so is the world ended yet? No, okay. But I start from Genesis, where you have the first apocalypse, right? The flood. And then you go all the way up, and then you get to what is the book of Daniel doing with prior prophecy? Prior prophecies failed. So Daniel 9 rewrites and reinterprets the prophecy, and then so you have this reinterpretation, and they have more and more reinterpretation. Then Daniel's prophecy fails, so then there's more people you see in the Dead Sea Scrolls who are trying to reinterpret Daniel, and they're doing scriptural math to figure out when did he really mean? Because he clearly didn't mean this time. And if you do the math, it really works out to the 30s AD. So it's basically there's different ways you do the math, but it works out to the early 1st century when all these guys are trying to claim to be this guy. So it's like, so Daniel is a failed prophecy. It's trying to fix a failed prophecy before it, and then you have these other failed or fixes to Daniel, because Daniel's a failed prophecy, and then you have all these guys trying to fulfill it, and they're all failing, and then one of them just ends up sparking a religion that just happens by chance to like hit all the right, knobs in the pinball machine to get out on the other end as a world religion.
Right.
But it was all just, and that is the failed prediction, because where Jesus says, I'm going to be back within the lifetime of anyone speaking here, or someone speaking here, 2,000 years later.
Yeah.
And it's the whole history of reinterpreting that, like, oh no, it's any time now. The world's going to end any time now. Even Christians today, the world's going to end any time now. Look at all the signs, we'll reinterpret it and do the math. They've been doing this for more than 2,000 years. So really, it's the same thing that's been going on for like 3,000 years now, of trying to reinterpret failed prophecy, and that explains basically Christianity. So anyway, if you're interested in that talk, it's a bit humorous, and that's online on YouTube.
Okay.